Okay, now beyond all of the fantastic uses of the NLI to give information on a location, again, it's free, it's open, anybody can use it. It's a very good way to give people information where to go. And we actually call it the drone code because it makes sense that you can use this to control a drone, to decide where you should go. And we're talking to some of the companies who use drone landing pads, and they're actually embedding the NLI into the landing pad. So when you put your landing pad down, you find out what your NLI is, and that's how you tell everybody where you want the drone to land, just by giving it the NLI. It's pretty cool. I think it's a great use of the technology. It's also being used in the emergency response teams. It's a very interesting use that in the case of a fire, for example, because you can use the NLI to identify a specific door inside a building, inside an office, inside a home, you can identify what's behind that door. And some companies have looked at that if there is a fire at home, and only at that time transmitting to the fire department the NLI codes of the children or pets or other things that you really want the fire company to pay attention to. Anyway, another application that we've been working on is in ISO 18119. This is a really interesting standard, which is used to identify a transport unit. Now, again, remember, it doesn't really matter how you do this as long as everybody agrees to do it in the same way. And preferably you do it in an open and public way that's very easy for people to figure out. So a transport unit identifier is made up of time. That's pretty obvious. We take the ISO 8601 format for date and time. We then take the NLI of the origin, the NLI of the destination. We have what's called a GPM stage. That's actually very important to the transport industry. That is a stage where you can identify whether I'm looking for a carrier to move the goods. I found a carrier, the goods are in transit. Different stages of the operation of end-to-end logistics have different stages. But the reason we put 2020 is where you start, because that's basically when you make the TUID public. That is a time in the shipping, the shipper to carrier, you have to negotiate a rate. So a shipper has to negotiate a rate with a carrier, and they're going to ask many carriers to quote a price to get goods from one place to another. And that action where you're looking to get quotes is stage 20. Now, of course, we need to know who's issuing this, who's going to be responsible paying it. Is this real? So again, we use a purchase order number, and we use a purchase order number in the ISO 8115 format, which tells us we have to have a prefix in front that tells us which company issued that number. So the actual purchase order number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but I can back off and say, well, company X issued that purchase order. Okay, so why do I need this? What is the point? Well, there's a very good application of this, and our friends at DFM Data Corp are the ones who've been promoting this and working with us on it, finding solutions. So the reason we want to be able to do this, and it's, if you think of GPS itself, now all these different mapping technologies, all these different goods and services that have been enabled because of GPS technology, because of the standard of how we communicate GPS information. Well, with the TUID, we're seeing the development of technology that helps improve end-to-end logistics. So let me give an example of that, what the problem is. So the problem statement, and we always like working for problem statements. What are we trying to do? How we're trying to fix something. Well, in this case, if you are a shipper, you're a manufacturer, or anybody wants to ship something, you're going to go to multiple marketplaces. Right? You're not going to be calling up all the carriers. You could do that, of course. You may have a Rolodex. That's an old technology, but you may have a list of carriers, and you could send all these carriers emails and ask them to quote. But in today's market, this is done through a digital freight marketplace, and there are over 1,000 digital freight marketplaces in the US alone. Internationally, there are literally tens of thousands of them. And basically, as a shipper looking for a carrier, you're going to post the load on the digital freight marketplace. The problem with that, and I'm going to give you an analogy in a different sense. Let's say you're trying to sell something online, and you, in the United States, we would probably go to Facebook Marketplace and to another place called Craigslist, or we may go to another local newspaper, and we would, that was free because we don't like paying for the stuff. So we basically put out there that we have this item for sale. Somebody contacts us through one of these marketplaces and said, hey, I'm interested, and we agree the deal. We agree the price, they're going to come pick it up tomorrow. Cool, that's all great. But we did not remove it from the other marketplaces. So other people are looking, they think when they look at the marketplace, there's all these loads looking for me to ship them, right? This is cool. But I can get very, depressed, maybe is a good word for it, very annoyed when I find all the work I have to do to offer a price to somebody to find, no, it's a phantom load. Somebody else booked it, it's gone. So I'm wasting my time. And one of the biggest challenges these marketplaces have, and a big ding to their reputation, is how many phantom loads they have on their system. And they have no way to get rid of them because they don't want to talk to each other. They don't want to talk to each other because I don't want to tell you who's using my marketplace. All right? That's proprietary to me. I really want to hang on to that. So how can we find a way to remove all these phantom loads without disclosing too much information? Well, that's the TUID. That's what it was designed to do. So what happens is, because the manufacturer or the shipper, when they send this load or the information about this load, they attach a TUID. Right? Now, what's interesting about the TUID is that there are products like the DFM data atomizer that can easily look at all these marketplaces and strip out phantom loads. Think of the consequence of that. Right? Think of removing all this noise from these marketplaces. The carriers, when they go look at a marketplace, they know this is real stuff. It's worthy of my time and effort to make a bid for this. It's real. I'm not going to be bidding against something that's just a waste of my time. So if you think of how those systems work, and it's a really good example of standards, these standards are very, very helpful to allow us to work together, right, and to share. Right? And again, standards, you have to have standards and standards enough to make it useful, but not too much to remove the other proprietary information that's in the marketplace. So this is a really good example of how the NLI is being used by a standard for transport unit identification to solve a very real problem in real life.